Okay, Q&A episode 17. Let's see what you want to know. First question from ForceHammer7883. Q&A. After the Battle of Rune and various overworlds that will experience Tau expansion, influence and alliances, how will Camino and the corporations, still making the ships, armored vehicles, firearms, and will be stuck making them for the GAR in the foreseeable future, try to update their training facilities and doctrine even if the changes are only small, specific, superficial changes rather than overall pivots due to money, resources, mentality and time observing from their perspective on the limited data of Tau naval and ground performance. I believe I answered very similar question, but fine, I will repeat myself. Of course, there will be changes, that's quite obvious. To what extent, I cannot tell you, because, again, predictably, spoilers. Come on, man. Look, ask your questions, but realize when asking them that many times my only answer will be, you will have to wait and see, because what do you want me to tell you? No, honestly, what do you want to hear? I also explained how the wider galaxy isn't really ready to accept the threat of the Tau and 40k factions because of how, well, distant they are. Remember, they are in the periphery of the galaxy, in the deep outer rim, far outer rim. They are at the same distance from the core as Tatooine and Ryloth. Freaking Ryloth. Ryloth is the bad end of the Republic, and it's bad end of the Republic only because they are on the major hyperspace lane. How will they change? In dozens different ways, both the Republic and the CIS. How exactly, I can't tell you, because, again, spoilers. I know, surprising. Like, come on people. If the question has obvious answer, like, you know, will the Republic, the galaxy adapt to new reality? Yes. Life, technologies, civilizations adapt to new realities. Even freaking Imperium of Man from 40k, as stale and decrepit as they are, they still adapt. And they were adapting before Gilman returned. Not in any fast manner, sure, but they did. So of course the Republic, the corporations, and everyone else will be adapting to new reality. But at the same time, this is an important part of, you know, the story of the narrative going forward. What do you want me to get? You like some massive spoilers? Come on people. I explained many times, I will be avoiding telling you something that can be spoiler, that could spoil you the future of a narrative, the future surprise. This type of question is basically, hey, can you tell me the spoilers for the distant future of a series? So I can't tell you how things will change for Forcehammer, I can only tell you that, yes, predictably, they will change. Okay, next question from Arsha Dajmal 8356. I hope I pronounced it right. Q&A. What if the Thousand Eyes of the Tau Commonwealth decided to use a successful bounty hunter like Cad Bane as a sleeper agent against Hat Cartel and other criminal organizations? Okay, first of all, they are called 100 Eyes, not 1000 Eyes, but, you know, details. And the scenario you propose is beyond unlikely. I think you underestimate the power and influence of mercenaries and bounty hunters in the Outer Rim. They are extremely powerful. There were civil wars between bounty hunters that were more brutal and had a greater body count than some wars. in Star Wars. That's a thing. They are immensely powerful in the Outer Rim. Now, imagine that the Tau will take not just any random mercenary or bounty hunter, but someone of true renown, someone recognizable, someone iconic, like Cad Bane, and not only first we'll have to capture him, and then, use their technology, their training to turn him into a sleeper agent. Basically, brainwash him. What message does that send to every other bounty hunter and mercenary in the galaxy? If the Tau are ready to do something like that, to someone as renowned as Cad Bane, they are ready to do it to anyone else. Which means Tau reputation with any guild, be it mercenary or bounty hunter, is lost, is gone, doesn't fucking exist. Even more, those organizations are now openly hostile to the Tau and will work extra hard to sabotage them. Do I need to explain why that's a terrible idea? No, beyond terrible idea. That's not shooting yourself in the foot, but taking a barrel full of C4 and blowing yourself up. More importantly than anything else, there is actually far simpler solution to make bounty hunters and mercenaries work for you, even as double agents. It's called money. Okay, 2 opening questions, not great. Okay, let's see the next one. What's the next question? From Random Rebel Lieutenant General. Oh, hello again. Didn't see you for quite some time. Q&A. Do the Tau have planet killers? For, when something funny shows up and a base Delta Zero, etc. bombing, is not enough. Yes, they do. The Tau have several super weapons that can be used potentially to, well, not destroy the planet, but at least destroy biosphere. Yeah, they have several radiation weapons, basically designed to kill all biological life on the surface. They have like super EMPs that can switch off any electricity and just sabotage all technology, which can be very effective on orbital stations or asteroid stations and so forth. They have also few wacky machines, including some doing something with time. I am not going to go into details, but they have seismic charges designed to how to say it, basically turn your planet into the set of 2012 movie, flipping goddamn tectonic plates. They do that. They have basically ability to say, very cool ICAST planet, have fun with your tectonic plates moving at the speed of a race car as your civilization sinks into the sea. They've done it before, so they have experience. They are just very unlikely to deploy it. If you are asking about like typical Imperium Exterminatus weapons, I do not believe that Tau have anything like, planet crackers. I do not believe that they have them yet, or if they have, they are not deployed from orbit but on the surface. So yeah, Tau have other weapons of planetary devastation other than mass orbital bombardment. Next question from Fury Dragon 74111. Q&A. Would the Jedi embrace ability to directly enter the Sea of Souls with use of warp drive when if they get their hands on one of these? Nope, they would not. Remember that the Jedi Order of this era is very dogmatic. They have a certain way of doing things, and they are not really flexible in their interpretation. For them, entering into the warp, especially because using warp even in Star Wars Galaxy, isn't safe unless you have a Gellar field, and Gellar field is a bunch of psychers sleeping about reality and creating protective bubble around the ship. That alone would make this technology completely amoral and wouldn't be accepted by the Jedi. It would be seen as a sacrilege. So no, they would not be embracing that little technology from 40k. Okay, next question from Fire Warrior 22. Q&A, you mentioned that Serantok Mercantile League are trying to turn the Thane of a Hearthfire Promise into a Votan, which tells me that this is a hold, but my question is, what kind of kin hold is it? Is it a world, bunch of worlds, a bunch of asteroids, a space station, a ship, or something else? Okay, so the kin have several colonies in the Tau space, but Hearthfire's Promise is the main hold. It's a planet, it's a mercantile world. Basically, for the sake of ensuring good trade, good deals, Tau sold them a planet and several nearby systems for many different tools, deals, pacts, rights to the minerals they will dig from different systems, so on. And the kin took that deal because, well, it's hard for them to find, a safe spaceport this far in the eastern reaches, especially one held by the kin and with the kin technology to maintain and repair their ships. So yeah, Hearthfire Promise is a world. Okay, next question from Juk Manjir, I think. Q&A, do you think the Republic judicial forces are extremely concerned after hearing about this battle because they know full well that the Senate would drag its feet when it comes to creating an actual army? To be completely honest, it's a mix. There are those who are extremely concerned about the Tau and their military capabilities, overseas is that, they themselves were not much for corporate armies and fleets. Now the Tau are this new rival, so maybe, just maybe, the Tau will be the ones who will humble corporations instead of judiciary forces. The more militant elements, like the Tarkin family of Eriadu, will be pushing more to remilitarize the galaxy, and many sectors will follow by their example. But the wide galaxy and the Republic as a whole, even judiciary forces, not so much. Again, the Tau Empire is in the far outer rim. They are close to the outskirts of a Republic space. Okay, I mean, technically, they are in quote-unquote Republic space, but those sectors basically only pay taxes and see no benefits of being part of a Republic. Which ironically includes seeing judiciary forces at all. So yeah, expect greater reaction from individual sectors and worlds rather than Republic or judiciary forces as a whole. Okay, next question from... oh bloody hell, I will not pronounce it well. Julia Meste Mari 9928, I think. Q&A. When you answered Seragusta in your previous Q&A, I was wondering what is your opinion about the world building in the sequel trilogy movies. World building. In sequel trilogy. What world building? What are you talking about? There is no world building in those movies. As much as prequels were a total mess, they had an interesting background of, this 1,000-year-old republic in a state of total decay and corruption. Ironically, the original trilogy was a bit simpler because there was, the rebels, the Huts, and the Rebel Alliance. In case of the prequel movies, there were far more many factions. There were corporations, there were Huts, there was a republic, there were independent worlds, and so forth. Yeah, the world was messy, but it was big, and there was a connection. Seeing the state of the galaxy in the original trilogy, you could believe in the state of the Republic in the prequel movies. I mean, it perfectly explained how someone like Palpatine managed to take power and create an empire which faced very little opposition until, 2 decades after the proclamation of the New Order. The sequels are disconnected from the rest of the Star Wars. Just as the decay of the Republic perfectly leads into the oppressive Empire, the First Order, the New Republic, and the Resistance, the lines that were supposed to connect those two eras are just breaking apart. They do not make sense. It does feel like a hard reset. Like we barely managed to abolish the Galactic Empire and we're going straight back into the corrupt, decaying Republic from, the prequel trilogy. Which is dumb, because in Legends, the New Republic had a lot of problems. They really did, but there was still connection, there was the progress. The New Republic was different from the Republic of the prequels. There were significant changes. It was a well-executed evolution, more or less. Of course, the Legends had their problems, but compared to the sequel trilogy, it's no comparison. Whatever passes for world building in sequels, even if you try to analyze them to stand on their own, it's very shallow. It's a puddle of liquid shit. Nothing more. Okay, next question from Ivan Torres 641. Oh, hello again. Q&A: what type of droids used in the Sky River Galaxy would the Tau be more interested to adopt and use, both in civilian and military matters? Well, hard to tell, because Tau basically have equivalent of every type of existing droid as a drone, because they have combat drones, they have repair drones, they have medic drones, so, battle droids, construction droids, medical droids, they already have those. I think astromech droids seem the most interesting because of their calculating abilities and their ability to repair stuff on the fly in different ships. I think that both Air and Earthcast would be interested in them. Other than that, I don't really see any individual droid that doesn't already have an equivalent as a drone. Okay, next question from Juan Pablo Arroyo Ave 5583. Q&A: if the Sky River Galaxy or the Tau got their hands on STC, how would they react to it and the implications regarding the technological decay of humans from the Milky Way? Fun fact, the Tau did encounter an STC, or more precisely, an Imperial Hive world where AI created by STC took over control over an entire world and the population. The Tau tried to take the world, they were repulsed, and since then the world was under blockade and there are growing a number of voices that proposes the destruction of a world before the AI gets the capability of launching ships into orbit. So, clearly, as valuable as STCs are, in this case at least, Tau see this as something too dangerous to be kept standing and are ready to destroy it if need be. As for the STC and the connotations of decay of humanity, the Tau are very aware about the decay of humanity, not just of the decay of the Imperium of Man, but also that there was a human empire before the Imperium. They, through archaeology, study, the contact with different old xenospecies, they found that out. They are very much aware that humanity is a species in the state of decay. And in fact, they see this as argument about their own superiority, that the age of humanity has passed and they should move to the shadows to allow new species like the Tau to take the lead in the galaxy. So yeah, the Tau are aware of STCs and they are aware of human decay over the countless millennia. As for humans from the Sky River galaxy, I do not believe that they would care that much. I mean, they would be intrigued, sure, but it would be like, a fun fact. Humans from Sky River galaxy and those of 40k might look similar, but there are differences. At best, they will come to a conclusion that they are alternative version of humanity, or that something similar to displacement happened long ago. Either humans from Sky River galaxy were transported into the 40k, or from Milky Way to Sky River. It doesn't really matter for them, because humanity from Sky River and humanity from Milky Way are completely different. They are distant cousins at best. And relicts of ancient fallen civilizations is nothing new to the humans and other species in the Sky River galaxy. There are countless examples of such technologies. Sure, the Rakata are long gone, but hell, if you look at the Old Republic, the humans of that age also created several intriguing technologies that they forgot over the years, the centuries. So, yeah, the Tau are aware, and that's just another proof of their own superiority and that the future belongs to them and not the decaying humanity. And the humans from Sky River would see this as a fun fact that doesn't really affect them directly. Okay, next question from Tiago Emilio 7204. Hello again. Q&A. Do you think that the Tau would allow civilians to have private starcraft like in the Sky River galaxy, even in a limited or communal manner? Why wouldn't they? There are private enterprises among the allied species of the Tau. There is no reason for them to not have starships. Sure, there will be regulated and there will be codes and signals and beacons and other stuff to keep it far more controlled, especially by the Outer Rim standards. But I do not see the reason why the Tau wouldn't allow private ownership of starships or ownerships by different communities. Look, you must understand that starships, even small freighters, are extremely expensive by Star Wars standards, by standards of how much people earn. Some even small starship, small freighter can be an equivalent of the annual salary. Like if you try to keep every credit you gain throughout the year, maybe as a high middle class, you might be able to buy a starship. A new one, that is, if you are okay with buying a used one and putting a lot of money into, repairs and maintenance, you can do it for a far smaller price, but it will be still very expensive. Think of starships as if you would think about boats and yachts in, our world. Not everyone can buy it. And there is a difference between, a riverboat, when you can, equivalent of a starships that you can use within a star system, and a boat that you can use to sail across the sea or an ocean. While it will, without a doubt, will be far more regulated than all of Outer Rim, there will be private starships in the hands of civilians soon enough. Next question from Rayburn5169. What would happen when the Tau find a junk world, and how would the rest of the Skyriver galaxy react? I get the basic idea of what would happen. The Tau would be confused at the waste of resources and ask for salvage rights, while the rest of the galaxy would be confused by the Tau suggesting that their trash is valuable. But after the confusion on both sides is over, I have no idea. The Tau wouldn't ask about salvage rights on junk worlds. They have enough, work taking care of their own waste and of their own junk to, taking care of junk of, the Skyriver galaxy. They would see them, as wasteful, as disgusting things, because you are destroying a planet to creating a landfill. If you are doing something like that, at least use, a dead moon or a space station. You do not need to kill a world to create a junkyard. Then again, the Tau are not new to the idea of junk worlds, because the Imperium have what is called waste worlds, and they are exactly what they sound like. In fact, their other name is salvage worlds. So junk worlds, waste worlds, the same tune for the Tau. It's just an expression of inefficiency and inability to be efficient. Okay, next question from Tyrannifex01. Hello again. Q&A. Will there be anything like officer exchange programs between the various military academies of the Republic and the training cadres of the Commonwealth, allowing for more interpersonal reaction between militaries, sort of like in the early episodes when they were on the Crescent? Sure, in time something like that will happen. Just as the Republic will be invested, or at least the Republic military academies will be invested in, learning about the Tau, their military doctrine, their military history, to figure them out, the Tau will try to do the same, because, surprisingly, the mere fact of existing of, something like hyperspace and hyperdrive changes the realities of war dramatically. So the Tau will be interested in the doctrines of this galaxy of how to, wage a hyperdrive war. So in time, those kind of exchange programs and joint training exercises will be happening. Though mostly, focused around pirates. All in good time, all in good time. Okay, next question from M.E.9152. Q&A. Why wake Okais up for Battle of Rune? He is one of the 2 students of Pure Tide still available to the Commonwealth, and as such isn't he supposed to be only taken out of cryo when he is desperately needed to keep him from aging? It seems almost wasteful to deploy such a limited asset to the battle while likely many other ghost kill pilots could have done the job. Okay, first of all, hindsight is 2020. You forget that the Commonwealth had no idea if the defensive fleet that they faced above Rhone would be the only force they would be forced to fight. There was a solid chance that another corporate fleet or corporate fleets, hell, even Republic judiciary forces would arrive to strike them from behind. At which point, the objectives change from, conquering the planet and liberating it to taking out the leadership. That's work for Okais. He and his teams would be fully capable of infiltrating both Rhone, the town defenses, the fortress, and assassinating Kong and all of Rhone leadership by themselves, and extracting without problem. Okais was the ace in the sleeve of the Commonwealth Liberation Forces, meant to be used if things go wrong. However, that was in truth secondary reason he was awakened. The first one was his analytical ability. Shadow Sun is busy containing orcs, so they can't redeploy her. Her keeping the orcs and wiping them out is, far more important than Rhone, so she must be there. They send their best to, eradicate an orc infestation. Okais is, as a commando, very good at analyzing threat of different forces. His deployment on the Rhone allowed him to observe forces of Sky River Galaxy and determine their threat level, which will be very useful for the other Tau commanders. More important than that, people tend to forget that the Tau do have life-extending technology at this point. So waking Okais or Shadow Sun is not that much of a problem as people might think. Sure, they still use cryosleep because it's the most efficient way of ensuring that people don't age, but they do have very good alternatives. And trading the insight of someone like Okais regarding the different weapons, troops, and technologies of the Sky River Galaxy in exchange of, him being awake for like a week, that's a good deal. That's a very good deal. Not to mention that if someone would try to retake the planet of Rhone, be it corporations, Huts, or even the Republic, Okais is a great force to be sent to eliminate their leadership or elite troops, including Jedi. Yes, you heard that right. Okais was woken up because the Tau weren't sure if the Republic won't intervene, or send the Jedi Order to intervene in this battle. He was there to kill Jedi, but would try to stop the Tau. Okay, next question from Griswo. Q&A. Do you think Count Dooku could be swayed to join the Tau Commonwealth? I feel like the Tau represents a lot of what Dooku wants for the galaxy. Hell no. No way, no how. 1. Dooku is already Darth Tyrannus. He is in service of Palpatine, so that's a no-go on that alone. 2nd, Dooku is a prideful, noble asshole. Do you really think he would allow something similar to his vision be enacted by a Xenos and, without him being in charge? Hell no. Hell no. In fact, and if anything, Dooku would be very against the Tau because they are kinda stealing his vibe, his plans. Next question from Tarot3078. Q&A, will we see Harlequins, and if yes, will we see a Solitaire? Only respond if this doesn't spoil something, of course. Look, predictably, Harlequins are present. You saw craft worlders and corsairs. Harlequins being around is kinda a given at this point, because they are usually working very close with both Harlequins and craft worlders. So yeah, they are around. Where exactly, I won't tell. And about Solitaire, no comment. You will have to wait and see. Okay, next question from Wolfech1914, our glorious artist. Hello, hello. Q&A, I can probably guess the answer, but who won the honor duel, the Crude Shaper or Sazerac? My bets are on chicken, or is that information for 100 Eyes personnel only? The Shaper won. I alluded it in the story where there was the talk between the Serene Spider and captured Trandoshan. In Trandoshan faith, being captured is the greatest shame. Basically, as you hunt and kill, you are gathering points, which determine how great your afterlife is. And if you are captured, you are losing all of them, all points. The only way to take them back is if you defeat the one who captured you. So Serene Spider used that and, offered Sazerac a rematch with the Shaper in exchange for information. Basically, you will get a chance to regain your honor, your points, and a chance to, go to glorious afterlife, to a proper afterlife, rather than end up in a pit in exchange for information. There is a reason why Sazerac was so open about secrets of Ravax, like location of Scarif. He got that rematch, he didn't survive it. Not much of a spoiler there, I think that was predictable outcome. Okay, next question from Lev Krasovsky4920. Q&A, if a great displacement never happened, or how different would Ravax's fate unfold in the Sky River Galaxy before, throughout the Clone Wars, and perhaps even after them? Ravax would die within half a year. Internal civil war, killed by Sazerac, actually. His cruelty would be his undoing. Again, he would bite more than he could chew, he would challenge the clan Vargir, he would lose, and as a consequence, Sazerac would kill him and the Ravax rivers would disband into multiple smaller pirate fleets. There was no future for Ravax. His nature would doom him either way. Monsters like him can only live for so long before they pick a fight that they can't win. So yeah, sorry to disappoint you, but Ravax would not live long enough to see the Clone Wars or anything beyond it. Okay, next question from D-Lender Agent 1519. Q&A. First, congratulations on the success of the series. Seriously, having fun animations and fan art pouring must feel amazing, and I hope, as someone who wants to write crossover story myself, I can only wish I can one day manage to gain at least a fraction of the success you are having. Thank you very much, those are very kind words, and, if you are lucky and you create a loyal and active fan base, sure, I'm sure you will get both fan art and fan animation. All in good time, my friend, all in good time. Anyways, actual question time. How many civilian casualties were inflicted in the Battle of Rune? How much of those casualties were caused by Tau auxiliaries? This was inspired by the civilian POV story, amazing by the way, I was in suspense the entire time. Glad I managed to do so. As for casualties, Not that many. Not that many. I think that overall will be like planet-wide, maybe around 10,000. And the Rune overall population is between 700 to 80,000 people. Casualties outside Taunton city itself were relatively limited. The town enacted a very precise fire campaign, and outside of, the fall of Marrow Drinker and destruction of several small villages, outside of Taunton, the civilians really didn't suffer much in terms of casualties. In terms of capital itself, there were far more casualties, though ironically, again, not that many caused by the firefights and missiles, but by the blind panic of the civilians. I think that a lot of people were getting trampled, a lot suffered wounds or died in hover car accidents as they were trying to escape. The casualties caused by auxiliaries themselves, limited. Tarelian, Krut, Votan and so forth, they are fully aware to, not hurt civilians. So while there were situations where some civilians were killed by unintentional fire or because their identity was mistaken, casualties were overall low. You can expect that in terms of civilian casualties, there will be far more wounded than dead, mostly because of how quickly the Rune defenders shattered, and because of local Rune resistance movements help redirecting civilians away from combat zones. So yeah, looking at the scale and brutality of a battle, casualties are minimal, and the fraction caused by the auxiliaries is also very limited, even by the Krut. Okay, final question from John Levy T1W. Q&A, if I may ask Mad Hatter, how does most Imperium of Man command ships compare to most Star Wars Clone Wars ships, such as your lunar-class cruisers alongside the escorting frigates like Firestorm and Sword frigates, fare in combat against most Star Wars ships they will encounter in the Clone Wars, and the kinds of tactics they will need to develop against large numbers of Providence-class and Venator-class cruisers, and how they will change the Clone Wars in some way for an in-depth discussion. Stuff like the Pride of Core won't be around for a while. So, first of all, if you want to see the answer to that question, just watch Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40k by a fan with too much time. If you didn't notice, this is mostly Tau-focused story, not Imperium-focused story. More than that, the story of A Fan with Too Much Time takes place during the Clone Wars, while we are 5 years before that conflict. So that's one. Second, Pride of the Core already exists. You are totally mistaken on that. Mandator 1 already exists and had existed for quite some time. I believe over a decade at this point. Mandators were not created for the Clone Wars, they were a PR stunt by Quad Drive Yards. Sure, they would be getting an upgrade, renaming them to Mandator 2, but those are not new ships, those are just upgraded Mandator 1 variants. And those will be true warships rather than PR stunts used in the Clone Wars. As for the comparison, I will try to keep it short because that's a discussion for a separate video, truth be told. Look, Republic ships or warships. Venator is a carrier that pretends to be a cruiser. Alright? It's a carrier. It's not that well armored and that well armed. Its true strength is in starfighters. Without starfighters, Venator is a poor warship. As for CIS ships, most of them are glass cannons. I mean, Munificent class frigate, Reclusant class light destroyer, both of them have a lot of firepower and shitty armor. They are glass cannons. I think the only true proper warship is a Providence, and not just standard type, but the Dreadnought variant. And I think that a Dreadnought variant of Providence would be okay facing against either Firestorm or a Sword Frigate. Maybe, more or less. However, and that's important, Imperial warships are far more gun and armor focused compared to ships from Star Wars. Their weakness is that they don't really carry starfighters, so that's a weakness that both CIS and the Republic can exploit, and basically it's the only way to defeat those ships efficiently and effectively. Because the moment they get into the gun range, Venators are freaking dead. By my calculations, if you want to face like against a Firestorm or a Sword Frigate, you would be safe sending 2 Venators against each one. Not because, Venator guns won't be able to damage it, because they will, just not fast enough. You need 2 Venators to make sure that all starfighters you will deploy and bombers will be able to cripple that ship before it gets into the gun range. Because if it does, you are dead. The situation is worse with Reclusant and Munificent frigates. You need far more. Similar 2-to-1 ratio with normal Providence. Dreadnought variant of Providence, I think, could potentially stand toe-to-toe against Imperial frigates. But even that, it's, depending on the captain, and I would still prefer for them to have at least 1 Munificent as support. In case of Lunar class cruisers, who are far bigger, 5 kilometers long, have far more guns, including those for long range, situation is far worse. I mean, if you want to be safe taking out a Lunar class cruiser as a Republic commander, you need to have at least 4 to 5, maybe more, Venators. And that to be, on a safe side. Because, again, if you are getting into the gun range, you are dead. Lunar cruiser will eat Venators for breakfast, without breaking a sweat. Those numbers are basically for the sake of deploying enough starfighters and bombers to cripple that ship before it could get into the gun range. For the CIS, you will need probably 3 or 4 Providences and probably half a dozen Munificent frigates. And the frigates aren't there to actually fire at Lunar Cruiser, they are there to keep it busy. Basically to catch incoming fire as Providences get close enough to unleash their missiles, guns and so forth. And again, preferably Dreadnought variants rather than normal variants. I won't go into the doctrine, but basically when fighting against Imperial starships, the best way of taking them out is keeping your distance and just sending swarms of starfighters. Because that's the weakness of Imperial Navy, they have limited number of carriers. So you hit them in their weakness, being no very limited starfighter cover. However, remember that your strength, being that of carriers, is also your greatest weakness. Because all that free space you have is great for housing, a lot of starfighters, not great for structural integrity, and that doesn't add up well against heavy guns of the Imperium. Alright, and that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this Q&A. I will be working on the next episode, though there will be some important things I will have to take care of, so there might be a pause in the uploads. We shall see. We shall see. Stay tuned and stay safe out there.